What is going on? Welcome to Dylan Talks Tone. Today we're going to talk amps. We're going to focus on the tube amp snob. Today we're going to talk about 3 options for guitar amplification that I think the genuine tube snob, the guy who just loves tube amps, doesn't want to go digital, might like to try for various reasons because I think they're cool. As much as we like traditional stuff. I mean, I've got vintage style telly here. We've got, guitars are guitars, right? Like they've stayed guitars since the 40s. Now with tube amps, when the digital stuff comes along, for some people, they just don't want to adopt it. Here's the problem. It's possible that because of where you live, where you gig, or where you play or practice, you might not have a choice. You might have to adopt some other type of technology to play your electric guitar. What are a couple examples of this? One would be there are certain countries that are making regulations based around power consumption. So a traditional tube amp consumes too much power to be manufactured or sold in that country anymore. Take, for example, there are some countries in Europe who have placed regulations on toasters, vacuum cleaners, and other kind of like high current appliances like that. Meaning, what that means is for the amount of power that they take in, it needs to put out a certain proportionate amount of power. Tube amps are terrible at this. They consume a lot of electricity. So, whether you agree with that or not, that's not part of this conversation. I'm just saying that in certain countries, they have those laws and you got to live by them. So that might be a thing. 2, you might live in a place like I do. Right now, while I'm waiting on my house, I am living in an apartment. And so we can't play loud here. I've got a neighbor there, and I've got a neighbor over there, and I've got a neighbor over there. And if we crank everything to 11, we're going to have problems. So we've got to play in a more quiet environment. Maybe that's you. The other thing is there are a lot of stages. If you're a gigging musician who says, I have to have my tube amp, I get it. We all want it. However, there's a lot of venues that are going to quiet stages who are not allowing you to play loud like you used to. So, options. What are they? If you are a tube amp snob like me who would rather have a Plexi, a Super Reverb. Super Reverb, to tell you the truth, #1 favorite amp in all the world. Problem is you can never play with a thing past 2 or 3. Right? So, because it's so loud. Super Reverb, 100% my favorite amp of all time. Same thing with the Princeton. What are you going to do in this situation? I'm going to give you 3 options today that are going to be what I think are kind of the best ideas for amplifying your guitar signal if you are a genuine, I cannot go digital tube guy. And I'm going to give you the reasons for it. I've got 3 of them. I've got them all 3 here. I've been using all of them extensively myself. And I'm just going to give you a few ideas as to why I think you should get them. Okay, we should say these 3 are not in any particular order. This is not meant to be this one is best, this one has the best tone, this one has whatever. We're talking about application of technology, because I think that's the thing that people get lost in when it comes to this stuff. They care so much about tone and how it feels and blah, 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 like all that stupid crap, when really you need something on Saturday night to play, whether that's at home, in an apartment, or live, and you just don't have a choice, and you have to figure out how to apply new technology to what you already do. I'm not going to say tone is irrelevant. I'm going to say all 3 of these do a great job, period. End of story. They're not bad. And most of the really good stuff these days does do that. You could argue about that in the comments all you want, but what we're really concerned with here is application of the technology and why I think a tube amp owner would be okay with this stuff. This guy right here. This is the Tone amp. This is the Fender Princeton Tone Master. Now, this I would speak for all 3. I believe there's 3: the Deluxe Reverb, the Princeton, and the Super Reverb Tone Master line of amps from Fender. They are all fantastic, all 3 of them. Why would you pick one over the other? Because you have a preference for a particular amp. I am not a deluxe reverb person. That's why I did. Oh, they have a twin too. The twin. So I guess there's 4. I personally wouldn't buy a twin, and I personally wouldn't buy a deluxe reverb just because I'm not a fan of either of those amps. Because in each of these iterations, they sound like their respective amps very, very well. They're light, they're portable, and they have fantastic options for playing them quiet. On the back of this one, there is an adjustable input gain. So when you're recording, I leave mine down because of my recording setup. But there's an XLR out. It's a super easy recording situation. There are 3 different settings for modeling for this thing that you can choose depending on the guitar you're playing. It has the, we'll get into the controls in a minute. But on the digital side of it, it's super convenient. You can still gig with it like a normal Princeton. It gets plenty loud. It does all the things. But for playing at home, plug it into your computer, headphones, whatever you want. Now, it doesn't have a headphone jack. That's the only downside. But once it's plugged into your computer or your interface, you're playing. You're doing everything you need to do. You're doing it quietly. And the reason I like this one, this particular setup for the tube amp guy, is because there are less buttons and no crap about it. It is exactly the same controls as a normal Princeton. So you have exactly the same buttons, exactly the same knobs. There's no learning curve. There's nothing. You just plug it in and you play it. It even has the 10 dB down input too. It has all the stuff that a normal Princeton does. If you did not know that this thing was digital, for most people, unless they get in the comments and argue about this for no freaking reason, it is a Princeton, is a Princeton, is a Princeton. You just play it. It's just an amp, which is what I really like. It takes all of the digital fiddliness and all of the option paralysis and all of that kind of stuff, completely just removes all of that. And you just play it as a digital version of itself. Nothing else. And literally 1 cable in the back into your interface, and you're playing quiet, and you're recording. My next choice would be the Blackstar St. James. I really, really like this amp. Now, there is some very interesting reasons why I would introduce this to the tube amp guy. The reason is, number 1, it's a tube amp. This particular model is the 6L6 model. It's 50 watts. I think it goes 5 watts, 10 watts. There's a power scaling thing on the back. We have a full review. We have full reviews on all this stuff on the channel. I'll leave links to the videos below so that you can watch the deep dives, because we do a really good deep dive on this amp with all the features. But this is a tube amp. There's no, for all intents and purposes, there is no, it's an emulation of, this is a 50 watt tube amp. There are tubes in here. You turn it on and you can see the bulbs light up and the thing. It sounds really good. The clean channel on this thing is really, really good. Now, I have the 6L6 version, and people say it's the higher gain one, but depending on how you play around with it, you can get anything you want out of it. I really, 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 really like this amp. The reason this is an excellent option for those that are tube amp snobs is because A, it's a tube amp, and B, it gets you into the digital side of things. On the back side of here, there's a switch that switches between 3 IRs, impulse responses, so that you can play this directly into a computer quietly without power scaling. You can play this at 50 watts, full on. You can dime all the knobs if you want. You can do it just like a normal tube amp, and it's safe to do it, and you play it into a computer, into like a you know, into my, like I got a Scarlett interface over there, Focusrite, and it'll do everything you want a normal tube amp to do because it is a normal tube amp with the addition of the digital interface on the back. Not only that, there's an actually on-screen editor that you can actually choose what cabinet you want to play into, what mic you want to play into, mic placement, all that kind of stuff. For recording purposes, this thing is phenomenally good. You can save 3 presets to the back of it, and there's a little manual switch back there. You can choose 3 presets for it, which is what I've done. I've chosen my 3 favorites. So depending on the guitar I use and what we're doing in the demo and stuff, I just use one of those 3. I don't go into the computer anymore. I just play it like a normal amp. It's phenomenally good. It has 2 different reverbs on it. The reverb for the clean channel is different than the reverb for the dirty channel. It's got a 12-inch speaker. It weighs almost nothing compared to a normal 50-watt amp because of what they've done here. And it is a phenomenal situation. Both of these options I really like, the Fender and the Blackstar, because this is genuine crossover to live gigging too. Because if you want to play some kind of live gig that's loud, you just grab one and you just go. The Tone Master or this one, you just grab it and you just go. No big deal. There's no transition. These are real amps that work like real amps, but have digital sides to them that you can then use those in your quiet situation. The third option I bring up to the tube amp aficionado who wants to go digital is the Amplitube Tonex pedal. We've talked a bunch about this. You've heard it in many, many demos that I use. This is probably my most common used tool. If we play some little snippets of guitar stuff on this channel for pickup reviews and stuff like that, I really, really like this. I use this all the time. The reason I recommend this to tube amp people is not because of the amazing tone or anything, but because it's cheap. It is not an expensive way to try digital stuff, and it's not an expensive way to try other amps. So if you have 1 amp or 2 amps and you want a bunch of different sounds, this is, I don't want to call it the poor man's Kemper because they do it differently. It is different. However, it's really, really good. There's a bunch of stuff that comes in it. There's a bunch of stuff in the digital community. And Tonex also has a capture device so that you can capture your personal amps with it and then be able to use it on the road. Now we have a full video on this device. It is basically an interface for a piece of software that gives you a bunch of digital profiles for different amps. So right here we've got a JCM 800, and I use a Super Reverb probably 99% of the time. As you'll notice, it's on a Temple Audio pedal board with just normal pedals. Now you can put this in a normal pedal chain. We have the digital delay analog delay after it. So this is the Maestro delay, which I really like because it just sounds like an old-fashioned delay. We have the Wampler Moxie overdrive in front of it, and we have a tuner. Very simple rig. Very simple. It's just you put it on the pedal board wherever your amp would go in your signal chain. It works awesome. And once you get your presets the way you want them, whether that's the amps that you have captured yourself with the capture device, or it's the ones that you've purchased from folks that sell said captures, or you're using the factory ones like I'm using. Once you get 3 or 4 or 5 preset in here, that can be a little fiddly in getting it how you want it. But once you get it how you want it, I just honestly, here we go. There's a super reverb. I think we've got a Dumble style, and we've got a Marshall. That gives me the 3 basic tones that I really care about when we're talking about making demo videos. I got a high gain, medium gain, and a low gain setting, and I got a overdrive pedal to put in front of it that does a couple of things here. And we've got a nice delay on the other side, and that's pretty much all I use. There's reverb built into here. Super, super simple. You don't have to get complicated with it, and it sounds great. There you go, there's 3. I mean, we could talk about a bunch of other stuff. You know, the positive grid stuff is awesome. I was actually just sitting in my living room last night watching football and playing with my positive grid amp. It doesn't sound as good as any of the rest of this stuff, but it's a digital solution that you just sit on your couch and play guitar. I've got my 4 presets set the way I want them to, and it's a great little practice tool, right? So a little honorable mention there. Positive grid thing, I absolutely love it. I've got the 40-watt one too. I think they're great. Do they sound like a stack of Marshalls? No, but they serve their purpose. I mean, let's face it, digital solutions are here to stay. You know, they're not going anywhere, like we talked about for the various reasons in the beginning of this video. I think that as we progress into the 21st century further and further, it's just going to keep getting more that way. And what's interesting is for the amount of people that don't want to give up tube amps, for every one of those guys, there's 5 other folks or gals that are younger players who don't care about that stuff and just want a convenient solution. But I think this video is important for those of us who are familiar with the older technology and want to figure out how to get into the new stuff without giving everything up, if that makes sense. So with the Princeton and the Tone Master Princeton and the Blackstar St. James, we don't have to give up anything because they are amps and they've got regular knobs and you just play them the way you want to play them. And then with the Tonex, the cost of entry is so low that it's not like in the old days when Kemper was the only thing and it was $1,800 and you had to sell everything you owned to buy one. It's not like that anymore, so there's a couple of those solutions. If you have other solutions that you can think of, please put them in the comments below. Let me know if you have tried any of this stuff. I'm going to leave links to all of it in the description. If you use those links, it does help the channel, so please go and shop around and check that stuff out. I think we even have an affiliate link for Positive Grid, so I'll show you all that stuff in the links below. And yeah, let me know in the comments what your experience has been. Also, let me know what your hesitation is if you're a tube amp person. You know, and I know there's going to be people that are going to be like, yeah, tone, bro, like totally tone. Like it doesn't sound the same. It doesn't feel the same. It doesn't matter if you're not allowed to play it, if it's too loud or if it consumes too much power or whatever those other reasons are. It doesn't matter. If you can't play, you can't play. So let me know what you think. Thanks for hanging out. I want to thank my Patreon supporters and my YouTube supporters, the ones that use the little join button, who hang out for live streams, also who use the super thanks button, which is like a super chat for normal videos, kind of. So thanks to everybody that uses that thing as well. And for those of you that also go to Dylan Talks Tone and order pickups from us, because that's what we really do around here. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you in the next video.